Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle. This is Michelle Reads YA, and today I'm giving you my January 2021 wrap up. So in January, I ended up reading 8 books, and I DNF'd one of my most anticipated books of 2020, which is really sad. So let's just get into it. The first book that I read was actually a buddy read with my book club. This is not a book that we chose for book club. This is a book that we were all kind of interested in. We're like, hey, let's read it together. And that is Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. If you know anything about me, read Monday's Not Coming last year and talked about it a lot with my book club, and some of them read it and really liked it, and we wanted to try another one of her books. So we did this. This is the story of Mary, who was accused of killing an infant when her mom was babysitting said infant, and she was in jail, and it's her story when she is in a group home and she finds out that she's pregnant, and the story goes on from there. Really good. I will say I did not like this as much as Monday's Not Coming. That was 100% a 5-star read, like from the beginning. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars because I did not love the ending that much, and without getting too spoilery, I feel like this ending was very similar to an ending of one of her more recent books that came out. So if you know what I'm talking about, or if you agree with me, let me know. But I just thought that those, like, they were very similar. This is her debut. I thought the writing was really good for a debut, like no issues there, but some of the story just like didn't work for me, and especially the ending. And a lot of the girls in my book club agreed. We all agreed like the ending was kind of like eh. So overall, I really like this. It was a strong first read for 2021. Really enjoyed it. Good. The next book that I read is super out of my comfort zone, and I listened to the audiobook, which I think was the way to go. And that is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is my first N.K. Jemisin. I have the 5th season on my shelf, and I am very afraid to read it. So I went with this one first. I read the audiobook. So good. It was like a production. It's hard to describe, but there's like sound effects, and the narrator does like weird things with their voice, and I don't think it's for everyone. My friend Jordan listened to the audiobook, and he said he had to stop it because he didn't like it. However, I love the audiobook. A+ audiobook. It was fantastic. The story though, I don't think was for me. So this is the story of 5 basically people who become avatars of the different boroughs of New York City. So there's Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens and Staten Island, and the other one that I don't remember because I'm not from New York. Anyway, so my issue with this, I ended up giving it 3 stars, so it wasn't bad at all. Probably the audiobook saved it for me. But my issue with this is that nothing really happened. It was a fairly long audiobook, and I just don't think a lot happened. You know, these people who become the avatars trying to find each other, and that's it. We get to the ending and there's some kind of standoff, but then it just kind of like ends on a cliffhanger, which I'm not gonna read any more of this series. So I don't know, it just wasn't for me. I've heard really mixed reviews about this. So I also am not like a sci-fi reader, and it definitely is sci-fi, so you know, it is what it is. But if you are interested in this and like really cool audiobooks, then I definitely suggest this one. The next book that I read was The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I actually talked about this a little bit in my last video. I'll put that up above on audiobook recommendations. Once again, this audiobook was great. It reminded me of Sadie because it has the podcast feature, which was so cool. It like takes you out of the story. But this is the story of a crime podcaster who is going to a trial of a really intense rape case. It's essentially the Brock Turner one in a small North Carolina town, and it's really intense. That part of the story is really intense. And then she finds a note on her card from someone she assumes listens to her podcast, asking her to help figure out her sister's murder. And I thought it was so good. However, I ended up only giving it 4 stars because at the end, these like 2 people finally meet face to face, and it just felt like very anticlimactic. Like you're waiting the whole time for like this woman to meet who is sending her notes, and then like it happens, and I don't know. It was like very ugh. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was so good, and actually Elise recommended this to like I think all of book club, and I took her up on it, and we almost never agree on anything, but I will say this was really good. It was pretty gruesome too, so I like they go into a lot of gruesome details of a murder and a rape, so it is not a pretty book, but it's a good one. The next book that I listened to was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. The more I think about this book, the less I like it. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but I don't think that's right. I honestly think it's more of a 2.5 stars. And I was reading this, and my friend had already read it, and she messaged me and was like, let me know what you think about this book because you're the only person I know who's read it besides me, and I want to talk about it. So I let her know when I finished it, and we talked about the ending for like a good 15 minutes because it was not good. It's hard to describe without giving a lot away, but basically this story is about the gentrification of this woman's neighborhood, and the neighborhood that she knows and grows up with is completely changing right in front of her eyes, which I thought was really interesting because I also read about that in The City We Became, so I was like, wow, this is really happening. However, Alyssa Cole is known as a romance writer, so there was also romance in this, which I didn't mind at all, but then you think there's a plot twist, and it's not really, and then the ending happens so fast and doesn't really make any sense, and by the time you get to the end, you're like, wait, what just happened? Because it did not make sense. So, even though my Goodreads says 3, my heart says 2.5. So I'm glad I read it. Like, it was a fast read, but overall I just like don't think the ending was good. Like, you have to have a solid ending, and this one didn't have it, so I don't know. The next book that I listened to, the next book that I read, this is the only book that I read physically the whole month, and that is Lucky Caller by Emma Mills. I actually buddy read this with my friend Katie. I will put her channel down below. She is great. Her videos are like sunshine. I don't know, I really like her. I'm glad I don't know how I found her, but really like her. Anyway, so I read this in like 3 days. I read like 100 pages a day, and it was great. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. I don't think because it was super good or original or anything, but it just made me feel good. Like, when I finished it, I was in a good mood, and I just like, it was a solid YA contemporary, and it just like, it made me feel good. So I probably overshot with the 4 stars, but that's okay. But this is a story of a girl who is taking an elective in high school of radio broadcasting, basically, and she is in a group of 4, and one of the kids in her group is a kid she used to be friends with, and there's a little romance, and there's also a side plot of her stepfather, and me and Katie agreed that like we think something like we think he is a major part of the story. I highly suggest this if you're just looking for like a cute YA contemporary. Nothing like big happens. It's not like hard-hitting like I normally like. It was just like going in, and it was cute and fluffy, and so if you like that, and I really liked it, I definitely recommend this. This is the second Emma Mills that I have read, and I have given both of her books 4 stars. So I think I own all of them. So I really have to dive into the other ones because I just think that I really like her. So 4 stars. This was great. Thanks for buddy reading with me. I had a great time, and I read 1 whole book physically the whole month, so that worked out. The next book that I listened to was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So, the reason I picked this up, I didn't know anything about it, but I kept seeing amazing reviews on Goodreads from people that I trust a lot. And so I went into this pretty much blind and was pretty underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by this book a lot. So this starts with this woman who is suicidal and decides to take her own life, and then she enters like this in-between world called the Midnight Library, where she can like pick a scenario that she can like go back in time and change the way her life is at that point where she decided to take her own life. And it was very not what I was expecting, because at the end it was like almost so self-helpy, and I was like, oh no, I did not sign up for this. Also, there is a Canadian TV show called Being Erica that reminded me of this so much, and Being Erica is so much better than this book. I highly recommend it. I think it's on Hulu. So there's that. But in my review on Goodreads, I said that I was underwhelmed, but I also said that you need to be in like a very good headspace to read this, because right off the bat, this main character is depressed and then takes her own life. And I am in a good place mentally, luckily, or else it would have been super triggering for me. Also, she discusses self-harm a lot, and I did not know this going in, and I wish I did. Once again, in a good place mentally, but like if I wasn't, this would have been so triggering, and none of the reviews that I read said anything about any of this. And so I just caution you, if you are looking to maybe read this book, be in a good headspace, because I was, luckily, but like I could see how it could be so triggering if you are not in a good headspace, especially for suicide ideation and self-harm. Like it was just like a lot right off the bat. Also, it was kind of boring, so 3 stars. And then, okay, so the next book that I read is a reread, and I read it for the first time 5 years ago and saw it on my library and was just like, it's time. So I reread The Selection by Kiera Cass. If you remember, my least favorite book of last year was The Betrothed by Kiera Cass, but this is so much better. So I think I said in my review on Goodreads that like, this is not groundbreaking at all. It's just so good. Like the drama, the characters, so good. It's just like The Bachelor, which I don't watch, but that's all it is. And it's super fast paced, and I gave it 5 stars because I love it. I read this for the first time in 2016, and I really liked it then, and I still really like it now. It honestly holds up. The drama is still so good. I liked it, so 5 stars. And then the very last book that I read and DNF'd in January is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. So this was one of my most anticipated books of 2020, and it did not go well. I listened to the audiobook, which was fine. I DNF'd 50% in, so I made it quite a long time in the audiobook, but several things did not work for me. This was told in 3rd person, and I never like 3rd person. I just don't. It's not for me. Why do 3rd person if you can do 1st person? I don't know. Secondly, the writing. So Aiden Thomas, I think, could be a good writer, but they went on to describe things like in the household and like in the cemetery and like in the setting that did not do anything with the plot. It slowed everything down and didn't make any sense and made me like zone out and not care about anything. Also, I just did not connect to these characters, probably because for me it was 3rd person, and that just, I don't want it. I don't want it. So I'm very upset that I DNF'd this. I did not think that I was going to, and then when I was halfway through and I was like, oh my god, I'm not liking this, I'm gonna have to DNF it, I was very upset. So just, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out. I don't think I will be trying anything else by this author. I know the next thing that they have coming out is like a Peter Pan retelling, which no. There is something about like gay Titanic, maybe, but I don't think I'm gonna like buy it. I'll just do it from the library. So I'm upset about this, to be honest, but okay. So that is everything that I read in January. It was a lot. I am off to a good start in 2021, even though I feel like I am in a life slump because of this pregnancy. We almost done. So yeah, so that's everything. Thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!